All right, now we're on page 63 and we're going to have some repeats and some new, mostly we're learning the different openings in the skull, and I think this is a real challenge for you guys, and so that's partly why I'm doing this video. All right, so let's review some things. All of these tiny little holes here on each side of that crista galli, those are for the olfactory nerve, and there's bunches of them, and those are called the olfactory foramina. Here, letter I is the foramen magnum. Letter G we've already learned. This is the jugular foramen. You can see it a little bit better on this picture. And what else did we learn? The foramen ovale, see those two perfect ovals right there. And we learned the foramen spinosum, which you can't see as well here, but it's right here. This is that tiny little circle just lateral to the foramen ovale. Okay, now we're going to look on this side. We're going to be able to see that the optic foramen, where the optic nerve comes off the back of the eye, we can see that on the inside of the skull right here too. And I'll show that a little bit better viewpoint on the actual skull. And just underneath that, we can see an actual new opening, and that is called the foramen rotundum. So the foramen, the optic foramen here, and just kind of below that we have the foramen rotundum, and then there's one more new one that we haven't learned. No, there's two. The hypoglossal foramen, this is going to hold a nerve, a cranial nerve that goes to the tongue. And that's also a tiny little opening that I'm going to show you on the skull that we can have a better viewpoint. It's just lateral and it's a tiny little opening. It kind of looks like the foramen spinosum, but it's just lateral to the foramen magnum. And then we have the inner ear opening. Now this one will not go through. We won't be able to see through this. It'll look like it ends. And this is called the internal acoustic meatus. We had an external acoustic meatus, and we also have an internal acoustic meatus. All right, now I'm going to grab the skull, and we're going to go through each of these structures on the skull. Once again, we have these tiny little openings called the olfactory foramina. You can't see them quite as well on here. Always when I'm on the exam, I always say, what is this opening? If I'm asking for an opening, sometimes I stick, I'll stick a straw through it so you can see it more clearly. All right, now let's look here. These two right here, these are the optic foramen. That's where the optic nerve goes through, all right? And then we see these two kind of perfect circles right underneath there. There's one there. Excuse my hand, it's kind of in the way. And there's one here, all right? And those are the foramen rotundum, okay? Optic nerve, foramen rotundum. We can see the foramen ovale. We see these tiny little perfect circles. Those are the foramen spinosum. If we tilt it even more, we can see the carotid foramen that are more jagged looking. These two right here, see how it doesn't go through? It's not going to go through on any of our skulls. So you know automatically that that one is the internal acoustic meatus. Then we have these real large jugular foramen. And finally, we don't have a great view of these on this skull either, but here they are. These two right here are the hypoglossal foramen. So that was page 63. 64 is a review of exactly what we just did, so you can look at those. Let's just look at a couple of them from this viewpoint. And so go to page 65, and we're going to review some of these structures. So here I colored in again that posterior part of the hard palate, and that is called the horizontal plate. And then this larger part I outlined, and that is called the palatine process, and those both form the hard palate of the mouth, or the roof of the mouth. So we're looking underneath right here. We took the mandible off, okay? And then we have these two little smooth surfaces. Those are called the occipital condyles. That's what helps you nod your head. And then we can see, of course, the foramen magnum. And then we can see also two of our bigger openings. And the one that's more posterior, and we can't see it as well, is the jugular foramen. And here we can see the carotid foramen underneath. Let me show you those from here. Here is the jugular. Do you see it? They're kind of jagged and they're bigger. And then here is the carotid.